So, a superb video from Thomas Sheridan today. Before I get on to that, just to let you know, I bought a shield for my microphone here. So I've taken the little kind of foamy thing off the top of it, and I've put the shield here instead. And that's because it lets me get close up to the thing without 2 tons of coming through. Um, without going into too many details, that shield may need to be cleaned or boil washed quite soon, but we don't need to go into that. But a really good video from Thomas today, talking about, first of all, the protest taking place in Cork now at the moment. There doesn't appear to have been any incident that RTE could use and exploit to propagandise the rest of the people, so it appears to have been very similar to the one in Dublin last week, a peaceful protest. I was talking to a normie today, and she said, wasn't it terrible? And I said it was terrible. I said the way RTE told lies about people protesting at their lives being ruined. Well, she said, everybody has to make sacrifices. Well, no, not really, I said, because we've been through enough of this now. Thomas had a post on Twitter yesterday in which he talks about Leo Varadkar being evil. Well, hey, Thomas, welcome to the club. I told you that 4 years ago. I saw that 4 years ago. I saw how evil Varadkar is. Varadkar is evil, and it's the evil of emptiness. It's not kind of Lord Summerisle in the Wicker Man type evil. It's not this kind of deliberate evil that these ones have. Although I wouldn't call Summerisle evil, except for burning the animals. That was evil. That was the only evil thing I saw in the film. Other than that, no. I think if you look at it from a pagan perspective, it was not evil. Varadkar is evil. I called Varadkar out as being evil before he became Taoiseach in 2017. Here we are now. It's March of 2021. We've nearly had 4 years of Varadkar. But Varadkar is not as evil as the mainstream media. A new NGO has started up. Another NGO appeared like a mushroom at dawn. And this NGO is now offering posts to people, 2 jobs it's advertising for, to monitor the far right and to keep a database. The NGOs are evil. They are an evil cancer in this country, but they are not even the NGOs which waste 5 billion euros, that is 5,000 million euros of your taxes each year. No, they're not even as evil as the biggest evil of all in this country, which is the mainstream media. And I twigged that in 2019. Let's talk briefly about that. I've said it to Greg Moffat. Here's what happened. A number of whistleblowing specialists, morticians in Waterford University Hospital, went to their bosses about malpractice. They were ignored, gaslit and shunned. That's how it works in Ireland. So they went public about it, and Varadkar immediately called them liars. So when the condemnation rose about Varadkar calling these 4 people who actually really were real doctors, not just putting on a coat and telling you, Lord, who lives alleged is going to kick the arse of coronavirus. Oh, I was moved to tears. I bawled my way through Leo's address. It's leadership, empathy and strength. Yeah. No. Real doctors who've actually helped people rather than hurt people the way Varadkar has. When these real doctors whistleblowed, Varadkar then gaslit and slandered them. So, they weren't really willing to put up with this, and a lot of other people weren't either. So, what happened was then Varadkar made a speech in the Dáil in which he said, I apologise if it seems... ... That's pure psychopath. That's classic psychopath gaslighting. If it seems, in other words, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. If it seems, well, you made the mistake in your perception here and construction of what I've said. And then Eileen Dunn, RTE's favourite transsexual, went on the news to say, the Taoiseach has issued an unconditional apology. No, sorry, Eileen, it wasn't an unconditional apology. It was gaslighting. Her editor, John Williams, the cone-headed freak who's in charge of news and current affairs in RTE, somebody under John Williams, or himself, probably himself, instructed that it be passed off as an apology. What was the net effect of that? The public lost attention. Journalists would have been saying, Mr. Varadkar, why did you not apologise? What does it seem like? How does it seem this way? That would have been when a proper journalist would have turned the screws further. And at that point I said RTE are deliberately telling lies to protect Varadkar, and RTE and John Williams are evil. And I noticed the change in RTE after Williams took over. Yes, but Varadkar is evil. Varadkar is evil. Thomas mentioned something, and I hadn't thought of it like this until he said it, but he's absolutely right. The Muslims are heroes. Yes, the Muslims are heroes. I've never had a problem with the Muslims anyway. The only issue I'd have with the Muslims is the potential of gay men like me being persecuted. That is the only problem I have with the Muslims. If you look at our Muslim community here in Ireland, they're better educated and they're of a better background than many Muslim communities in other countries. Our Muslims tend to be hard-working, clean-living, respectable, quiet people. I disagree in principle with the burqa, but that's the same logic that I apply to a mask. But, you know, the burqa issue can be dealt with elsewhere. Let's talk about the Muslims. About 150 Muslims went worshipping in a mosque in Blackpits in Dublin 8. Blackpits is actually a very old medieval part of Dublin. Blackpits. What does that say to you? And they were caught on camera and there was hoo-ha about it. No. Their imam was a good church leader. That's a cleric. I'd shake his hand. I'm sure he'd shake mine because he probably hasn't bought into all the hysteria. I would shake his hand, the imam, because that's a cleric leading his flock. Now, the Roman Catholic Church, the other established Christian denominations in this country, bottled it. They closed their churches to their flocks when they needed it the most. Elderly people, middle-class, respectable people, rural people, for whom the church means so much, they turn their backs on them. And if you want to, and I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Jew, but I actually now, and Thomas is right, I respect the Muslims for what they did in Blackpits. I respect those people for going to pray, and I respect their cleric for leading them that way. That is respectable behaviour. Good on you. If that's the character of Muslims we have in this country, well then I say to each and every one of you at that mosque in Blackpits, and I say to your clerical leader, you are welcome in my country. Let's be clear about that. I believe in religious separation of church and state anyway. If they want to pray as Muslims, let them pray as Muslims. So long as they're not attempting to enforce anything upon me or anybody else in this country, they keep themselves to themselves, they do their prayer, they do their things. Good for them. But also, fair play to them. They took a stand. And Muslims of that type, I suspect, I don't speak on their behalf, I'm not acquainted particularly with them, but, you know, they believe in their religion. They'll die for their religion. You know, and sure, evidently God is protecting them sufficiently to protect them from this virus, and their attitude, I suspect, would be, if they were killed by the virus, it's God's will. So, you know, everyone's a winner. You know? But if they're going to take a stand like that to protect their religious rights against a tyrannical, incompetent, psychopathic government and their enablers in RTE in the Irish Times, well then, guys, listen, and I hope the Muslims in Blackpits hear me, I'm on your side, I support you. Good for you, well done. You know? More than Roderick O'Gorman when he was doing all that virtue signalling in Croke Park, but that's O'Gorman for you. Not human O'Gorman. They were humans, actually. Those Muslims who went to the mosque in Blackpits, they are humans. And their imam, their leader, I think the word is imam, I don't know. Their church leader was a human as well. Hey guys, you know, we're with you in this one. I say that in all earnestness. You know, I hadn't thought of it along the lines that Thomas explained. Yes, he's right. Absolutely right. They were heroes. They were heroes, and their leader, the imam, was, he was a hero. And the thing about the Muslims is, if I were to go to that mosque next Friday, they'd welcome you. You'd be made welcome. Now, there's an idea, people, isn't it? There's an idea for you. Are these people, these Muslims who obeyed their God and obeyed their conscience and did what they do, are these people who we think we should perhaps consider supporting? Now, there's diversity for you. And reaching across the communities. Because if those kind of people have that courage to do that, well then I want you in my country. You know, you're welcome. God bless you. And I say that seriously to those Muslims and to that imam who led them. May God bless every single one of you. May he bless every footstep you take for what you did in that mosque. Thomas is right. He focused my thoughts on it. Good man. You know, they were right to do it. They defied the lockdown. And I think I may have put up tweets that were equivocal about that. If I did, I'm sorry, because, you know, hey, I'll change my mind. Thomas changed my mind when he put it that way. Yes, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Well done. You're heroes for that. We support you. I support you personally for what you did by having that Friday prayer in black pits. Go for it. Good man. Good men. Well done. You know, I'm downright tempted to go and join them. I'm downright tempted. You know, paganism is such that you can join other religions if you have a common cause. Paganism isn't sectarianism. Sectarianism is the antithesis of paganism. You know, Lord Summerisle in The Wicker Man, you know, Sergeant Howie says to him, well, what about Christianity? And Summerisle, haha, Christopher Lee, who took no fee for his part in the film because he thought it was such a good script. There's another hero. Christopher Lee played baddies. In fact, he was a real goodie. He took his part in that film without a fee because he wanted that film to succeed. Posthumously, we must give Christopher Lee a round of applause for that. So Sergeant Howie is saying, well, what about Christianity? And Summerisle says, well, we view that as we view that as a comparative religion. Well, what more do you want? I view Islam as comparative religion. And Christianity and Judaism. They're comparative religions. Okay, cool. And I mean, Howie was too thick to even realise what Summerisle was saying to him was, you want to be a Christian here on our island and practice Christianity, we're not going to stop you. That's pure paganism. Pure pagan. That's, you know, tolerance of other religions. So long as it doesn't involve practices against children or anything else that's particularly depraved. You know? That would eliminate an awful lot of Christians immediately from that one, wouldn't it? But anyway, I've digressed. Thomas put a post about Varadkar being evil. Yes, well, I told you all that. Varadkar is evil, downright evil. And I realised that Varadkar was evil shortly before, sorry, there was a bit of an interruption there, shortly before Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil handed him the post of Taoiseach in 2017, because he made a speech in which he said, when he was going for the leadership of Fine Gael, I would be in Taoiseach from people who get up early in the morning. Oliver Callan thinks he does a good impression of Varadkar. I think I do a better one. And the reason why I think I do a better one is because doing an impression is not about a facsimile of the person's voice. Because in that regard, then you'll never do an impression. You'll never succeed. So if you want to do Owen Murphy, for example, oh, well, I think tenement living and co-living is exciting. Murphy has a lisp, but he also has a whine in his voice. Exciting. So the way that you do an impression of somebody isn't that you go to do a facsimile of the voice. You pick up a characteristic of the voice and you ride with that. Varadkar has a flat drone. I want to be a Taoiseach for people who get up early in the morning. That's how you copy Varadkar. We are looking at vaccine passport. Also, he has a flatter accent than than Oliver Callan, who is a supporter of Varadkar, recognises. If the content does not attack the subject, then it's not satire. All right? If it doesn't attack the subject, then it's not satire. That means that it is tribute. So RTE used to have an execrable programme called Bull Island, pure tribute. And it's another RTE thing. If we all put on funny wigs, people will think we're gas. Varadkar actually was on Virgin Media 1 yesterday, salivating at the prospect of vaccine passports. Now, I'll just stop you all for a second and say that's not going to happen. Vaccine passports are not going to happen. Why? Because we have very, very long established constitutional precedent in this country about privacy and about the right to refuse medical intervention. This is Varadkar gaslighting. Now, he may well believe it in that 5 minutes or 30 seconds that his pea brain focuses on these things. You know, they're incompetent. You must bear that in mind. Varadkar has no grasp of the Constitution. He once suggested that the Ceann Comhairle in Dáil's session should seek legal advice. The Ceann Comhairle bit his head off. Are you aware that I'm the head of this house, not you? Bear that in mind, people. The head of the Dáil is the Ceann Comhairle, not the Taoiseach. The Taoiseach is the head of the government. He takes that to cabinet meetings. He's the head in there. In the Dáil, in the chamber in session, everybody is equal except the Ceann Comhairle. The Ceann Comhairle is the first among equals in the Dáil. Varadkar, of course, is far, 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 far too stupid to know that. So he threatened the Ceann Comhairle with seeking legal advice, and the Ceann Comhairle exploded. It was a great sunglasses and cigar moment. It was brill. You know, of course, RTE suppressed it. Of course they did. Of course RTE suppressed it. This gets back to what I said earlier. RTE is your enemy. More than the NGOs. More either than Varadkar or Micheál Martin, but we'll come to Mr. Martin presently. RTE is your enemy, and so is Virgin Media, because Virgin Media is supposed to be competing with RTE, and they're not. They're buttressing what RTE is doing. They are your enemies. They are your enemies. More than the NGOs, more than the politicians. Anyway, Varadkar was salivating at the prospect. He was openly twitching and salivating at the prospect of vaccine passports. And then Thomas said, this thing is evil. Yes, of course it is. I mean, I told you that. Look back at all my tweets. Look back at the particular very offensive meme I did of Varadkar standing outside the burnt caravan in Shankill and Grenfell Tower saying, ha ha, ha ha, they won't be getting up early anytime soon. That offended a lot of people and it got spotted. Good. I'm glad I offended people with that. I'm happy. That makes me happy because that's satire. Satire is not about propping up the establishment. It's about attacking. So I remember there was a desultory programme on BBC Northern Ireland, The Folks on the Hill. Oh, The Folks on the Hill. Oh, The Folks on the Hill on BBC One Northern Ireland. So it was. Just after the local news. The Folks on the Hill. Oh, and I saw, wait till I tell you, I saw these Northern Ireland politicians. Come here now and I'll tell you, wee man. I saw these Northern Ireland politicians interviewed about the folks on the hill, so they were. And wait till I tell you what they said. They said, I sit down with me wife and the daughter, so I do. After we've parked the tractor out the back and we've milked the cows and the sheep, I sit down, so I do, said this DUP politician. Sure, I sit down, so I do. And we moved the orange juice and Ribena away after we've had our wee dinner, so we do, because we don't drink alcohol. Because the church doesn't allow it, so it doesn't. We sat down, we watch The Folks on the Hill. So we did in BBC Northern Ireland, and we said a wee prayer before, and we watched The Folks on the Hill. So we did, and I laughed. I laughed, and I laughed a bit more. Well, then, it's not satire. Then, it's tribute. We don't have much satire in the mainstream in this country. In fact, we have very little at all. Because anytime anybody does anything that hits the mark, invariably, the senior management in RTE chicken out. The last person in RTE who didn't chicken out was Gay Byrne. Now, he didn't do satire, but he did commentary. Gay did do commentary. And he never chickened out. Gay never chickened out. I mean, it wasn't great. He could be very condescending on the Late Late Show. 95% of that. I was talking to somebody today about the Late Late, I said 95% of it was diabolical. And it could be as dull as dishwater. Hello, Martin. From Ballylicky. How is Mary? And little Mickey. I mean, it was just cringe. And people saw it from abroad. They'd be saying, oh, God, what are the Irish like? But there were those 5% of gold that the Late Late would come out with. I remember the lesbian nuns in the 1980s, the lesbian nuns. And my aunt had friends, they're very nice people actually. And they had teenage kids and kids who were kind of 8, 9, 10-ish. They're quite a big family. And these were conservative people. I'm not sneering at them much, but they were conservative people. And they were coming over to visit my aunt, so they didn't want the kids to watch the 2 lesbian nuns in the Late Late Show, so they brought the telly with them. This is a true story. They brought the telly with them. God bless them, because they didn't want the kids looking at the 2 rug muncher Mickey Dodgers on the Late Late. And I'm sure they were the... I'm sure they were the only 2 lesbian nuns in the world. Like going into a cloistered environment with all women, I'm sure, that wouldn't attract lesers. No. I'm sure they're all just in there gagging for a bit of priestly penis or something, But anyway, no, it wouldn't attract lesbians going into the convent. No. and teaching girls. Teaching girls. So, yeah, well, let's get back, though, to Varadkar, and let's get back to what Thomas has said. Your enemy is the mainstream media, because when Varadkar was on Virgin Media, I mean, Virgin Media is actually experimenting with putting a few programs between the ads. Every time I switch on Virgin Media, my father likes Judge Judy on Virgin Media 1, and I switch it on ads. All the time on Virgin Media, it's ads. They are trialling now, rolling out some programs between the ads on Virgin Media. But Varadkar was given free rein to gaslight people about vaccine passports. And I heard people today talking about vaccine passports. It's not the wolves who are evil, it's the person who lets them in the door. Okay, Varadkar is evil. But more evil is those who are letting them in the door. That's what's evil. That's what's evil. Vaccine passports. Vaccine passports. That is evil. The notion, the concept of vaccine passports. But it's not going to happen. It's like chipping. It's like chipping. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't worry about it. But at the same time, what it does is it just, it's like it psychs out the normies. That's the purpose of it. It's to psych out the normies. And it worked, from what I was listening to today. Despite the fact that my parents and I tested negative for COVID. Thomas said something else. He said that Varadkar is a tyrant. Yes, he is. But tyrants are psychopaths, usually. And he is also a narcissistic fantasist. This was said of Kim Jong-il, the second of the Kim family who took over after Kim Il-sung in North Korea. Now, I think the present one, Kim Jong-un, isn't a psychopath. I think he's a very, very hard man. But he did business with Trump. Kim Jong-un did. They saw kindred spirits. They're hard men. They're dealers. Kim Jong-un in his 30s took over the leadership of North Korea and killed all his opponents. That's what you have to do. It's a Confucian thing. It's an Eastern thing. He killed anybody in the court who he thought was a threat. Good man. Because I do believe, and people may scoff at this, but I do believe Kim Jong-un is aware that North Korea is in a desperate situation, that his father in particular, diabolical psychopath, ruined the country. And I think in his own way, while he wants to hold on to power and not find himself in the chopping block, he's trying desperately to open the country up in some way, form, shape or size. But his father, Kim Jong-un, people who met him said he was a narcissistic fantasist. So was Varadkar. The grandiosity, and also the lack of appropriate behaviour. Varadkar going to Downing Street talking about Love Actually. Varadkar in the White House using bad language at the St. Patrick's Day thing. Varadkar with the socks and Trudeau. They all point in one direction, a narcissistic fantasist. Oh, Yolly was a lad. She's in with the socks. And he said taking the piss in the old lad. He said taking the piss in the White House, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. That's not appropriate behaviour. It's not decorous. That's not leadership behaviour. That's not adult behaviour. By the way, Varadkar apparently is under criminal investigation for meddling in 2 public selection processes. So why is this man, who's an indicted criminal, it seems, being given a free rein to preach on Virgin Media 1? The mainstream media is your enemy, but Micheál Martin is as well. Thomas talks about Varadkar being a tyrant. Tyrants blossom when there's no opposition. Well, there's no opposition from the mainstream media and there's no opposition in the Dáil. The only opposition that you have in the Dáil, there is some, I suppose. There's the likes of Aontú and there's the rural independents. They're the ones you need to vote for. I disagree fundamentally with Thomas on the notion of not voting. Do vote. Vote, vote, vote. Choose a vote. I have 3 votes. 2 in the Shannon, 1 in the Dáil. Use them. Use them. Because he talks about being of the system, not in the system. That's right. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt you to use your vote. And I do believe very strongly in participating, or at least being seen to participate in that particular process. It is your democratic right. If you don't want to vote, don't vote. I don't believe it's a democratic duty. They're talking about Peter Hitchens. Peter Hitchens apparently got the vaccine. So what? So what? It's your right to get a vaccine. It's just not your duty. And they're all saying, oh, cancel Hitchens. No, that's disgraceful. Don't be cancelling Hitchens. At the right time, Hitchens spoke out against the masks. And he was very courageous about that. So he chose to exercise his right to get a vaccine. So what? That's his right, you know. It's just that when people dissent from getting the vaccine, as I am, they shouldn't be in any way punished, either implicitly or negatively. Negative punishment means that you are not entitled to something that you would otherwise be entitled to if you could show that you had got the vaccine. Well, let's see how that one rolls out. Let's see how that turns out. Micheál Martin, when Varadkar became Taoiseach, or became leader of Fine Gael, Martin should not have let him become Taoiseach. He should have pulled the plug and gone to an election. He wouldn't have got any worse than he got. So Martin has had all his warnings. And what you resist persists, apparently, according to, the likes of Owen Harris, who I regard well, actually. I regard Harris well, but sometimes Harris is just a bit too sycophantic of the Taoiseach. But Harris said, it was the only thing they could do to stop Sinn Féin. What they're doing is they're actually building up Sinn Féin's charisma, despite everything, despite the fact Sinn Féin are diabolical. Sinn Féin are woke globalists. They're an establishment party. They're controlled opposition. Because the only person in the Dáil who is not controlled opposition, or in the Seanad, or in Stormont, is anybody who is speaking out against the lockdown. That is genuine. Okay, Thomas has raised the possibility that they may still be controlled opposition. Okay, they may still be, but you have to take sometimes the remarks on face value. If they're speaking out against the lockdown, then they're part of the opposition. They're part of the opposition. It's encouraging to see ordinary people get up and protest, because it was probably motivated as much by the pearl clutching from RTE and the rest of the mainstream media about last week's peaceful demonstration in Dublin. So, if the demonstrations develop that characteristic of becoming something that RTE don't like, well, then they're going to gather a momentum like you won't recognise. You won't know what's hit you when you see the momentum these things will gather very quickly. Like not wearing a mask. Like that. Something that I also said is that the label of far right is becoming sanitised. By the way, I noticed between last week's peaceful protest in Dublin and this week, an NGO called Uplift is looking for 2 staff to monitor the far right. Are they going to blacklist us? Are they going to keep records of us? Is that what they're going to do? Not, by the way, I use us slightly erroneously. I'm not far right. I'm not far right. No, don't let anyone call me far right, although they haven't actually. But what do they mean by that? Are they going to name names? This is the stuff that Lachéla D&D, last month's new race-baiting NGO, came out with. They're going to challenge and target the far right. And then I put up a video saying what do they intend to do, and they changed the script. So we're back to this, targeting the far right. Interestingly, Uplift.ie has said that these 2 posts will carry an annual salary of $44,000 a year. So in the space of 7 days, they got the funding for this. Really, 44,000, 88,000. They got 88,000 for this. A lot of people could use 88,000, to help keep a roof over their head. That kind of thing. Thomas talks about population reduction. Yeah, I agree with what he said in his video. I agree, but the issue in Ireland is that we need to close the borders. That's what we need to do, and we need to stop rewarding people who get in here and just dig their heels in and stay illegally. Now, that's anecdotal on my part. I have not actually had time yet to read the white paper on direct provision. Here's what to do with direct provision. Close down the direct provision centres and deport anybody who's not entitled to be here. That sounds easy enough to me. Sounds cool to me. That sounds like that's an idea, doesn't it? Close down the direct provision centres and deport anybody who's not entitled to be here. Because otherwise we don't really have borders, do we? Do they vet the people who come in here? Because we're not an immediate port of call for somebody who's escaping, shall we say, war and violence in Syria. So how do they get to Ireland? They have to go through some other country, the UK, Britain, France. How do they get here? So, and by the way, we're not in NATO, so we didn't bomb their countries. We don't owe them anything. With the utmost respect to those people. Then you have to look closer at the people who the NGOs and the Irish Times are promoting. and see then how actually authentic their claims might be. But Micheál Martin, getting back to Thomas's theme in his tweet, Micheál Martin is the enabler of Varadkar. I said this before, he's the wicker man. And he's been played like a fiddle by Varadkar and by the Fine Gaelers, who don't care about Micheál Martin anyway. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are different parties. They're from a different heritage and there's a different attitude. Fianna Fáil people are people you'd sit down with and have a cup of coffee with. Fine Gaelers, I'd chase them out of the driveway. I've done that. Seriously, I have chased Fine Gaelers out of our driveway, coming up here thinking that assuming that we're the kind of people who'd support them. Oh, try me on. When I brought planning judicial reviews and Hope, I was contacted by Fianna Fáil politicians. They were the only politicians who bothered to contact me. That wasn't done out of the good of their heart, it's because they want votes. But they saw that I was challenging planning decisions in Hope that a lot of the electorate didn't want. So they said, they began to pick up on the buzz of it. And that shows something. It shows that they're watching and they're keeping their ears to the ground and they're watching the grassroots. And they contacted me to talk about it. Now, that's because they want to get votes. They don't want to help me necessarily, but they want to be seen to be getting involved in things that are agitating local people. That's Fianna Fáil. That's Fianna Fáil. Whereas a Fine Gaeler had a public meeting about my litigation and didn't invite me. Well, you can't blame a pig for grunting. You can't blame a pig for grunting. Catherine Noone, and then she actually, she really made a show of herself, didn't she, just before the election? But I said to everybody in the area, I'd been calling her scum for 2 years beforehand, which she is. Catherine Noone is scum. But that's, she's peak Fine Gael, Catherine Noone is. Peak Fine Gael, and they are scum in Fine Gael. Scum. And Varadkar is scum. And Micheál Martin, though, is scum for being the enabler and facilitator of scum like Varadkar and Coveney and Murphy and Harris. I said in a previous video, though, isn't it fortunate that Coveney didn't get the leadership of Fine Gael, because Coveney is competent and he's not quite as overtly repulsive as Varadkar. We are seeing something where, a totes hilaire ledge bag of a presenter on RTE has suddenly vanished off the radar. And is he like Brendan Grace with this huge grassroots following, or even Brendan O'Carroll? I mean, I don't think Mrs. Brown's Boys is funny, but people disagree with me. He has O'Carroll. In fairness to Brendan O'Carroll, he does have a very, very profound, serious grassroots following. So does Daniel O'Donnell. They're big in Scotland. Daniel O'Donnell's massive in Scotland. Much bigger than here. Except Daniel O'Donnell actually is really genuinely talented and a good live performer. And actually, Daniel O'Donnell's a hell of a nice man. And an unassuming, talented... Daniel is one of... Like Brendan. He'd remind you a bit of Brendan Grace, as I said. Daniel's one of those people who'll get up and perform. He's very comfortable with live performance. When Daniel performs in the Great Northern Hotel, all the staff say, once he's finished the gig each night, he comes out and sits in the lounge and plays the piano and drinks tea with all the owl ones. I think they have to have an owl one alert before Daniel appears in Bundoran. There is going to be, this is a serious alert, there is going to be a large gathering of owl ones around Bundoran all saying, oh, isn't he lovely? Isn't he lovely to have a cup of tea? No, actually, so lovely, Daniel is. I mean, what can you say? And I mean, there has been that Owen McLove depiction of Daniel, but people forget that Daniel is actually a very talented musician and singer, like Brendan Grace. Brendan O'Carroll is talented. I'm not rubbishing him. And one of the things about Brendan O'Carroll, and I remember attending a meeting many, many years ago in which he says all of these people with the NGOs and getting subsidy from the state don't manage to fill half the size of a theatre that I do. Yes. Yep. Yeah, Brendan O'Carroll fills theatres without subsidy from the Arts Council. So, fair play, Brendan. I met Brendan O'Carroll once and he was an extremely courteous individual. I met him briefly once and, he's time for people. He's approachable. He makes time for people. He is genuinely, Brendan O'Carroll is a nice man. I don't like Mrs. Brown's Boys very much. I think the script is lazy. I think there's many, it could be improved hugely. But lots of people do like it. Fair enough. Okay, good. Nobody's forcing me to watch it. I have digressed. Micheál Martin is the wicker man. I've said this before. And he is this enabler of an exceptionally evil, twisted individual, Varadkar. And now Varadkar's salivating at vaccine passports. It's okay. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, the vaccine passports. All right? Not going to happen. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just more gaslighting, though. But what it does is it puts the fear of God up people who are still taking the mainstream media seriously. Although you could say, actually, that anybody who's continuing to take the mainstream media seriously now is like anybody who voted for Fine Gael in 2020, and they deserve whatever they get.